Ladies and gentlemen, let's start. We start this webinar for clarification of the bidding of 2021. Thank you for the availability and interest of the attendees. The National Oil for Petroleum, Gas and Biofuels carry out this webinar as a template to more inclusive template and less extended in time. At hand, we will answer all the questions that are throughout the webinar will be through. And to welcome us, I would like Dr. Matasha Masana, Chairman of the ANPG, and also to have this framework of this new bidding process. Your attention, please. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of NPG, we would like to welcome you all to this clarification webinar for the bidding process of 2021. Um, it is important here to mention that for this bidding process, we have as a main objective of this particular session to provide some information, the process itself, and this time we want a process a little bit different from the one we used to previously do. We would also want to let you know that that is available. A virtual data home is available that investors and uh, interested parties should consult technical information on the blocks that we'll be bidding, and also to inform you that how this process will the listening and for this interesting companies. So this bidding process comes within the allocation of the bidding oils approved or stipulated for the Angolan government in February 2019. This strategy includes to 2019 to 2025. So then for the 2021 is the bidding 16, block 16, 31, 32, 33, and 34 are expected to be bidded, and also blocks 7, 8, and 9 to be bidded. So the first one for the lower Congo basin, and the 7, 8, and 9 of the Kwanza basin. It's also important to say that some of the blocks have been mentioned here, or major part of this those blocks will be subject to this process. These are areas and concessions that have been bidded previously bidded, some with some discoveries, some with areas in production. So what we are going to bid for this process is the free areas of those these concessions itself. The process that we're going to start, it is a limited public tender, and according to Prudential Decree 290 of 2 of December, which established the rules and procedures for the public tenders, limited public tenders for the national concessionary. We aim with this process within the strategy an ANPG that's been implemented to promote the expansion of the geological potential and oil petroleum of the country, because we also want to increase the reserves of the country to enhance the competitiveness in oil competitiveness, the oil industry, and also to ensure the recovery of the investors. So to promote foreign investment in our industry, a way to disseminate knowledge, technology, governance, international governance rules, and as well as to promote the exploration of natural gas. Once again, I'd like to remind you what is being included in our strategy, which is included in our allocation of oil concessions in our strategy approved from the government. We start into 2019 with the bidding of the blocks of Namib and Bengala basins. In 2020, we have bidded new blocks on shore of Lower Congo Basin and the Kwanza Logo. Now for 2021, we brought 8 blocks for the sea zones of Lower Congo and Kwanza, as I said earlier. We are talking about the free areas. We are going to bid those areas to remind the free areas of the block 16, block 31, 32, 33, and 34. Those in the sea Lower Congo Basin, and for Kwanza Basin, we have block 7, block 8, block and 9. Our bidding strategy, it doesn't finish with this 2021 process. We will continue, as we all aware, has been said by myself, the allocation process for these biddings for 2019 to 2025. And 2023, we will resume our bidding process with 12 blocks of the Kwanza and the Congo lower basins. And then in 2025, we will come back to the bidding of another 10 blocks. And that time will be at sea air zone of Kwanza Basin. So this our this clarification session has been said earlier. The main of this the session is to talk about a little bit and to explain the interested parties how this process is being how the limited bidding public tender will take place. So we will listen from our colleagues exactly um, what phases are contemplated in this limited bidding public tender. We already started a listening process from other companies. We've been inviting all the companies from the sector, so they have potential or possible interest, and they can express their interest. So we are available, as I said at the beginning, to provide and make it available, all the information, technical available information on those blocks and basins that we are going to bid. And now we would like to invite you to access what is a virtual data home of NPG, where this information is available for, in fact, so then we can consult our data. Without further ado, I'd like to thank you, your attendance, and also to encourage all the necessary questions. So in fact, that we all be leaving this with some clarification, and also to then we can actually, or you can have this kind of promotion exercise. So that's why we're here to let you know your entities, what is ANPG is doing in search of a new investors for this exploration and production in Angola, and this time for in the sea lower Congo and Kwanza lower Congo basins. So I'd like to thank you, all of you, and wish you a good webinar. Thank you all. Thank you, Dr. Massano, for your intervention, for your clarification. And I would like to invite my colleague, Lunga Afonso, for the Department of Negotiations to give some hints for these biddings. Thank you, Nelsa, for this presentation, and Dr. Natasha for your introduction that we have have the privilege to listen. Now, please allow me to explain. Mm. And it's a privilege uh, to to count on you from the other side, and also we can share this peculiar Angolan industry sector. It's not so much important to have this investment within the worldwide investment sector. So this is in due to greatly the great huge clean conscious through the sources non-fluence. One day we will stop the energy of fluence sources. So today is the right time to decide that we will invest or will produce, whether we will produce or not. So tomorrow could be late. So now today, the National Agency Petroleum, Gas and Oil in Angola opened this opportunity to open this investment opportunity in this industry that be shown there's some rentability. What we want to propose to submit today. During our presentation, we will clarify how that is impossible to impossible, these 18 blocks submitted here. Now we will also talk about the type of contracts that will be signed at the end of this process, the main characteristics of this contract, and because it is of a great value that to have you as attenders or to invest or to support within your respective companies and your to invest in those blocks that we are submitted today. One of the interesting characteristics of this process, it is the typology of the bidding. Let's start from here, and we make it this as a special differentiate environment. This is the type of limited bidding process. Why this limited bidding process is very special, and in particular because of these blocks. The term itself, limited public bidding or public tender, it is limited. It means that companies that will take part of this process will previously selected to participate in this bidding process. So it means that you can feel yourself as privileged already, because in one way or another you're taking part of this the companies that be indicated, they'll be selected in these restricted public tender. Not everyone will be included in this. So because of this, it's a privilege to be here. And this type of concourse, it brings some advantages. It is more inclusive bidding. It allows that companies that be previously selected can actually participate in the terms of reference. This is as it is a positive, because companies can suggest for the blocks have interest to participate, the terms that actually that go according to their needs and financial needs as well. And well, on the other hand, the selection of its blocks itself has something special. The requirement said that to select blocks for this type of bidding, they need to be included in a strategic area zone, blocks that be of lower risk of exploration, and then to recognize the oil petroleum potential. As we can see from our chairman of board of directors, all the blocks have the target of attribution of research seismic have been done some work, and some of the cases they have some production in this area. So which means that investor, when it comes to invest in those blocks, will not come with a concern to see if we have oil or not. So because the petroleum system of those blocks is truly approved. So it's a matter of time that means that those will take less time in terms of which is the standard bidding process. So this process brings another some particularities. As I said from the beginning, we are in a wave. The world is in a wave of transition, energy transition, less to lower pollutant energy, and everyone is pressed in terms to explore in terms of and
adopting policies and strategies that will make this process more attractive, and the national concessionaire was not left behind. In its specific task for this bidding process, it brings about an important issue, which is to design terms of reference that will be attractive for investment and that will ensure a full return by our investors. So let us pay attention to two details. First, we're saying that companies can submit proposals for the terms of reference. That is a bonus already. We are saying that the concessionaire has already submitted in its strategy that it intends to allocate terms of reference that will favor investment. That will be gold on top of gold. So everything is in favor of the investor. That's what we have said at the beginning. This is a special program for those of you present. Please feel free. You feel you're special because you're part of this clarification process, because you'll be part of the decision making process. That is why the recommendation in the appeal is that oil companies who are on the other side, in all other entities who may have their portfolio or knowledge of oil companies that have demonstrated financial technical capacity, please make sure to bring to Angola because we have the Filimion to be exploited. And these are the blocks of the well-known basins, Lower Congo Basin and Congo Basin. So we are fully available and we can work together so we can wrap up this process because this process is a very successful one. Now, let us talk about the whole public tender process that goes from May and June next year. So, as from next month, we will have the technical and commercial meetings. At this point in time, and my colleague in his intervention will talk about this, we already have the visualization of the data via virtual or face to face. Many companies are already attempting to have access as much as possible to all these technical information on the blogs. As from mid November, that is from the 29th of November onwards, there will be technical meetings. So companies will be invited, and together with our colleagues at the technical department, they will discuss about seismic issues on the wells, everything that has to do with activities that have taken place or the available information on these blogs. All this information will provide companies knowledge. So by the time they start having the commercial meetings with the concessionaire, they'll be able to bring about their proposals, the terms of reference on those blocks they're interested in investing. That is the key moment in decision making for the investment. And it is right at these meetings that interested companies will be then selected to participate in the rest of the bidding. So this is the right moment for the decision making. And right after this, invited companies will receive the approved terms of reference. They'll be able to submit their proposal, and the publications of the terms of reference will take place most probably January because we don't have much time to take the decision. We have to take decisions right now. And then, together with the process, by May, June, we will be able to close with the signature of the contracts. This roadmap, it's part of the concessionaire's website. So companies will be able to consult it so as to update themselves as for next steps, the next steps of this stage. Now, talking about the submission of proposals, what can companies be expected to submit? Minimum program of work, number of wells, seismic they would like to conduct, they'll commit themselves, the, the proposal of the oil for the cost recovery, the investment premium, the production sharing, petroleum and profit, social projects, as well as technical assistance and administrative rate. And we will then look at the screen, and there's no possibility of the bonus for signature. So there's an additional incentive for this tender process. There's no bonus or premium bonus, because this was done on purpose, because the national concessionaire wants you to invest in the fulfillment of the minimum work fee, so that you're not going to be spending more money paying the concessionaire so as to have access to this block. As soon as you sign the contract, all your investment goes towards fulfilling this contract. That is a good project. That is definitely a good project. At the end of the process, we will then sign a production sharing contract, and this contract is the draft of this contract is available on the concessionaire website. You can consult it, and you can also contribute it in case you see something is missing or that can be improved on that agreement. On the production sharing agreement, have been able to prove over the years that it's one of the best contracts, especially in the investor's perspective, because it was designed in such a manner to enable investors to recover their investment from the beginning of the production. And we'll be able to show you that. On the next slides, the total production from the block, it will be shared for the recovery and for profit, meaning that from the very first time the company starts producing, they already have the oil for profit. So it's a project that starts giving you profit from the from the right barrel, from the first barrel. And then there will be also oil to recover the costs, the operational costs, 25% of the investment, which means that if I'm to invest 100, by the time I'm to recover it, I'll be able to recover 100. On top of the 100, there will be an additional recovery. So there will be an additional bonus, which makes this contract a very interesting contract. Then there's also exploration contract or recovery. If there's a remaining, then this remaining goes for the profit oil, and then this will be split by the domestic profitability rate, which takes into consideration the costs invested by the investor. Because at the beginning of the project, they will have to pay a rate, any taxes of 50% for foreign companies and 30% for national companies. So from the very beginning, cost recovery is always being secured. So we'll stop here, ladies and gentlemen. Let us think of it's a public restricted tender, so it's already restricted, and the oil in its oil system, it's already been proven. There's not much work to be done, so there's no uncertainty. There's already oil in there. All you have to do is to go out there and invest. You're not going to pay any bonus for signature. It's direct. You'll be able to be selected, and you can. It's special. We are going to select the gentleman who's capable of participating in this, and we have a contract that effectively ensures the cost recovery, investment, the recovery of your investment. As we have said, you are sitting on a minefield. Please come to Angola and invest in the oil business. Thank you. Thank you, Kialunga Afonso, for this presentation. I will kindly invite Celso Alameda from the legal department, who's going to be discussing about the terms and requirements for these bidding or for this tender. Thank you, Nelsa. Distinguished participants, I would like to wish you a very good afternoon. And the legal framework applicable to the oil sector, I'm going to take you through the key legislation for the oil sector. And let me start by law legislation 10/04 law on oil activities and decree number 1/09, which regulates it. Let me say that the current law governs the rights and accesses of oil companies in the national territory. And as a general activities, the exclusivity of the national concessionaire as the holder of the rights, the obligation of forming companies or the national concessionaire should be able to establish partnership with the foreign or local companies with technical and financial capacities in order to undertake oil activities. And there's also the risk during the research, the national concessionaire will have to do the all investments. So these are costs considered to be recoverable under the production sharing agreement. So if it's to allocate an oil production to the national concessionaire, the modalities will be made under a corporate contract or a production sharing contract. And we'll be able to celebrate a contract, a risk sharing contract, contrary to what happens to production sharing agreement, which entails a previous uh, restricted tender. Another relevant law is the law 11/04, which talks about the customs regime. And it has to do with the concession of the exemptions in import and exports of goods and services. And it has a list in an act with a description of goods to be covered. Now, let me also mention that under this law, it's possible to import and export to provisionally some goods without any need of paying any fees. However, the use of such goods for different purposes, for those initially declared, will constitute a breach, and it's punishable by law. Now, with respect to law 13/04, the law on oil activities, law on oil oil taxing activities. And this law establishes the taxing regime under the oil sector. And let me just refer that the fiscal regime applicable based on what has been adopted, considering that on this round of bidding, there will be a production sharing contract. And let me just emphasize those taxes applicable to the production sharing agreement, namely the tax on oil income, whose profit, whose profit is generated on production, generation, storage, and export with a fee or tax of 50% on production. And there's also surface fee, which is also on the concession area or development areas in case the contract with the national concessionaire has a rate of $300 per square meter. And there's also a fee or tax for the training of national cadres. And that rate is fixed under the decree 17/09 on 26th of June. Under the legal framework applicable to the oil sector, there's also other legal instruments on the environmental preservation. And let me just emphasize the law number 5/98, the environmental law. And there's also the decree number 39/00, that regulates the environmental protection in all oil activities. And finally, Decree number 117/20 that approves the general regulation of environmental impact and the procedure of environmental licensing. Let me just refer that all projects that are being developed under oil activities are subject to environmental assessment and takes into consideration the best practices of the industry. So it's up to the national concessionaire as a regulator to make sure that the legal principles as part of the constitutions are fully fulfilled. As for those investors who are interested in investing in Angola, they should take into consideration and respect the anti-corruption laws enforcing in the country. And let me just emphasize the law number 3/10, the public property law, which establishes the legal regime with respect to the public morality and to the respect to the public asset by the public agent. There's also law number 5/20, which is the law on prevention and countering enter, laundering and financing to terrorism, proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. And Angola is also signatory of international conventions, namely the African Union Convention on Prevention and Combat to Corruption and the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, which was ratified by Angola in 2016. On the implementation of the new legal framework in Angola, one has to emphasize 5 fundamental decrees that have been dynamizing the oil sector over the past years, namely the Presidential Decree number 86/18, which focus on the rules and procedures of tenders by the national concessionaire and for the procurement of goods and services in the oil sector. This decree has been dynamizing the whole quality process by the national concessionaire. And on the other hand, it provides a prerogative for the investor and provides contracts on goods and services without having to consult the national concessionaire. Provides a huge flexibility in terms of by the operator. We also have the decree 5/18, and that is the decree that focuses on additional risk savvy in the development areas. And this decree also creates an exceptional regime that allows or enables investors to conduct additional research during the production, enabling the investor to conduct new discovery in potential areas. The Presidential Decree 7/18 also focus on the application of a judicial and fiscal regime to natural gas. And this allows the maximization of hydrocarbons. There's also 2 fundamental pieces of legislation missing, namely decree, Presidential Decree 91/18, which focus on the rules and procedures for abandonment exit activities, and that gives you good news. It has a differentiated legal regime for the exit activities, so as to ensure that the exit of wells and dismantling of operations in line of the best international best practices. And finally, we have Decree 6/18, and that decree aims at allows you to develop national fields. And let me just refer that this decree contains fiscal incentive that has had positive results in the economic marginal discoveries. Let me just refer that in the existing concessions, this decree allows you to take advantage of fiscal aspects on the marginal discoveries. And before this explanation, we can surely say without mistaking that Angola has a robust legal framework for the oil sector, which was designed specifically to attract investments and to provide a response to all those of you. And with that, I would end my presentation. Thank you for your attention and a very good afternoon. So we just need one last presentation to end this webinar. And let me just remind you on the
And because the data are valuable for those biddings, and I would like to invite Wilson Ribeiro from the data department to talk about the data consultation that we have available for the basins to be bidded in 2022. Thank you, Nelsa, once again. Please welcome you all to this webinar. I hope that all of you are having this interesting and clarification webinar. Now I'm going to talk about this data consultation. Besides that, I would also talk about the structure of the data structure and the way of consultation, data consultation, as well as the position of the data that will be submitted. Well, and nothing can be said, although that has been talked about some history. What's in regards to the oil petroleum exploration up to 1910, when these are located as either in Congo Basin or Kwanza, as a total of square kilometers for this effect. At the time from 1910 up to now, in regards to exploration, as a onshore or offshore of this, we will have to emphasize geological data, geomilitary, as well as 3D seismic. We have some bidding petrophysicals, chemical tests, production, a variety of information that we think to be relevant for all of you at this session. In regards to the content of the data package, this data package has been projected with 5 parts. The first one, we have the maps, geological data, description of the blocks, geophysical information. In terms of maps, we have a variety of maps included in our package. Interactive map that can be found in our website in our institution, as well as concession map, wells, seismic, and that's the portfolio of companies that operate in our country. In regards to geological data, final reports, well load studies, they have been included in one single package. So in terms of investment, in parts of geographical of these groups submitted here, they are part of this package between the geophysical data, as we could say, seismic and technometry. In terms of legal information, there will be some clarification, as my colleague from the legal department that will have the pleasure to explain this. As having said that, in respect to the available data for the Congo Basin, 5 blocks have been bidded. Between them, we have block 34 with a major campaign for the seismic 3D, between the blocks being selected. A total of 16 kilometers, square kilometers in terms of acquisition. And it is important also to emphasize the block 34 with only two wells. It has a variety of information in terms of seismic data. All of this information aggregated to the data that I have said earlier in terms of geological data, there will be that in terms of decision up to the exploration phase, it will be extremely straightforward. All of the blocks have been submitted, like Kwanza Basin, as you could say, the three blocks 7, 6, and 8. The block 8 is also one of the blocks that contain one of the major seismic information in terms of these three blocks. Is for the second major block. This is the correct information. Block 8, there's two wells exploited. As I said, if any of those investors that have been in attendance accumulate on these terms of geological data, the magnetometry data, they will facilitate in terms of decision of these blocks available. In terms of information from our data package, this can be consulted in the consultation of data. So this is a very simple process and can do it two ways of process in terms of our corporate website or through the email that we would like to make available at the end of this session. So investor would have choose the way of access to the consultation of the data, make the application, and ask our attendance team that will give the duly treat for this process. And in terms of consultation that we're going to exercise or face-to-face or virtual, as I said, as Mrs. Natasha Masana has said, we have data room after choosing the type of project and those available blocks, then we move to entering of a signing of agreement or a national in the NDA agreement. Well, as we have this confidential agreement have been signed, then this part will be connected to the final process, which is the type of consultation that be chosen initially, Susan, or either virtually or either face to face. So then the credentials for this will be make it available for investors in time. In case our investor have chosen the face-to-face session, all the conditions will make it in place so that we can receive all the investors that be interested in any interested block, so that through this pandemic situation, conditions will be dealt so that we can receive all of it's important to refer without the signature of this confidential agreement, the the next phases or the following phases of this process cannot be taken place. So let's move on to the validation of this in terms of acquisition of data, acquisition data. Acquisition data is composed of 5 steps. The ways of access come through to the access to the data consultation, access of our corporate web page, and as well as to the email that you can see in our that we make it available at the end of this session, that you can see here at after choosing the type of application and the type of attendance for our investment in terms of package, uh, NDA will be signed between the parties, and then we will determine the way of payment of the payment could be made through a banking transfer or any of the ways that will be appropriate to our investors. And after those phases have been followed, then we move to the delivery of this data. We have 3 ways of delivering this data. We have LSTP that all the access credentials will make it available, or SharePoint of the web drive. And finally, and in case that our clients have a more appropriate to their needs, we have available a storage device it's important to emphasize that geophysical data in are in possession of our vendors, our partners, as you can see at the screen, Slumberg or FPGS, all those geophysical data that you can make it access can be done through, as you can see in the screen of those contacts or dashboard. We will count on you. So once again, and thank you very much. We are at the end of the presentations, and we are sure that we'll be able to explain what is pertinent or relevant to the biddings of 2021, and so that you can all participate. So now let's move on to the Q&A, asking you all that if you want to make any questions, please do it. Uh, do it from the Zoom link to answer your questions. We have with us the chairman of the borders, Natasha Marciano, the head of the data department, Lume Sebastião, and as also a representative of negotiations, the director, Mr. Elder the Yombo, head of the Department of Negotiations. So let's now move on to Q&A. Now I'll pass the floor to the first question. In what circumstances an ANPG can take have a restricted bidding process? We have a second question. Which will be the criteria for the selection of the entities that taking part of this restricted bidding process? And the last one, the last one will be the terms of reference for this restricted bidding process. I think that we can start with this series of Q&A. We had another one. Well, before end, I'd like to thank you all for your attendance and for your questions. And that's why we're here, and exactly to clarify any doubts and any questions, and also to help companies that are interested in to participate. So to be more clarified in this kind of process. For the first question, and also and for the first two questions, I would leave, because they are, these two questions are more legal questions. I'll leave Dr. Teresa, and then if there's something to add, I'll leave Elder and Sarab to add some words. Do you have anything to say? Okay, thank you, Dr. Natasha. First, in which circumstances ANPG can carry out a restricted public bidding? The second, which requirements will be for these entities taking part of this restricted bidding process? And the third one, what are the terms of reference for this restricted public bidding? Thank you, Neza, Chairman Natasha. In regards to the circumstances, ANPG will actually carry out this restricted bidding process. Just to say, this bidding process should be carried out. They should be in accordance to other procedures that are established or stipulated to the Prudential Decree 223/10, which stipulates the rules and requirements for this process. This could this could be carried out, or as I said earlier, taking account of the main premises to have a less area of a small area of small investment, uh, operators of small and medium size, intention to promote an Angolan entrepreneurship, bring to our industry national companies. It is necessary to have in petroleum concessions to have a geological of cooperation geological process, having some partnerships that have this technical and financial capacity, and finally, these strategic areas that be characterized as a low risk of exploration, exploration, low risk. They have the ensign of this exploration. So to actually to give some premises to these entities, those are the premises or that ANPG to carry out this restricted public bidding. And the second question that is in relation to entities that can take care of this, can actually join this restricted bidding public. The requirements are related to what is the idoneity of and the technical financial and technical capacity of the investor. And because and taking account those requirements, if our investors submit to us those premises, then they will be considered as I think those are the questions. Thank you, Teresa. The two first questions. The third one was, what are the terms of references for this restricted bidding process? Therefore, the terms of references they are normally defined by the national concessionary with approval of the ministry for this specific public bidding process. We are defining terms of more favorable terms of references and taking account the technical and negotiations. We would like to invite potential investors to take part of these terms of references. Thank you very much. So in regards to this question, as has been said earlier by Kialunga, head of the negotiation department, and now from Alvaro Umbo, one of the major particularities of this this restricted public bidding, it is exactly to give the possibilities to interested companies and have expressed this interest and to propose the concessionaire terms and conditions that the index perspective they think are different from and more attractive for them to have their participation, then to constitute a major added value for this process, negotiation process. And then we are actually emphasize here, and we bring and we'd like to call your attention for the possibility to everyone to participate in this definition of the terms of references. Let's proceed with the next follow-up questions. Which are the criteria, participation requirements for the technical meetings? Another question is how companies can actively participate in the definition of the terms of references. Another question is what is the bonus or signature bonus? Why this bonus signature in this process? Let's start from the last question. And let's take a little bit about the bonus, signature bonus. So we we have with within the framework of this strategy of allocation of oil concessions by the Angola government, the main primacy that was given to this strategy and the main objective of the government is to, in fact, to consolidate and increase our knowledge of the geological potential and oil petroleum of the country. This is the one of the major strategy of allocation strategy of the oil concessions. As it was said earlier during our presentations, um, we are facing our industry is facing in the transformation process through a different dynamic with some peculiar challenges. Then besides those constraints, economical, financial of the activity, we are in a transition process for a more cleaner energies. So in one side, this is one reality. On the other side, this is another reality. The level um, of competitiveness that we are living, that this petrol industry, Angola in particular, is not the only country that have some that made some petroleum concessions available, that have made available some areas for production exploration. That it means that the, the the fighting for the investment, for the financial capital, it's a serious one. So we were forced to adjust our expectations and to make our market more dynamic, more attractive for investment, and therefore we've made some changes to this. So what we proposed in relation to bonus signature is, as it was said by my colleague Kalunga in its intervention, is that notwithstanding we recognize that we have the certainty that we have the right place for this kind of industry, but we also aware that that we have some competent competitors that we have want to attract all the investment that can make it possible within this potential, the knowledge of this, to attract new investment. The government decided to give some primacy to this study and to this investment in pro of this for this activity. Therefore, the concessionary in support that is the government policy decided not to bring the bonus of signature as a differentiate flag. Therefore, I think this is a good news.
I think it's a good news. There will no longer be signature bonus, and this is part of our investment strategy and attracting investment for the sector. So right after this, I will ask Elder Yondo to talk about the criteria to put to attend in the technical meetings and how can companies participate and define in the discussions of the terms of reference. Thank you. So I'm going to start. How can companies actively participate in defining the terms of reference? We at ANPG, we recommend companies to participate in virtual data showroom, and afterward, at the end of the month of November, and me so participate in the technical meetings so as to have sufficient elements to discuss with ANPG during the commercial meetings, the terms of reference, the profit talk, lab list, and as well as the contribution for the social projects. So now, moving to the next question, what are the participation criteria for the technical meetings. So the technical meetings are open for any interested party. All you have to do is to express your interest, and then you can inform the ANPG through to our email licitações at npg.co.za, and then companies will be able to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Since we're going to be sharing with the companies during the technical meetings, we're going to be sharing confidential information, especially on the data on the blocks that have been subjected to these tenders for 2021. Thank you. So let us now continue with other questions that have been asked in the chat room. So there's one question which says, is it possible to submit proposals in joint bids or as a consortium? Another question is, can a company submit a proposal for 100% participation in one of the blocks? How will the preferential rights be implemented by Sonongo? And there are additional two questions. How can we access the data? And what is the cost for the data package? What is the cost of the data package? Could you repeat the questions? Surely. The first question, is it possible to submit proposals in joint bid or as a consortium? The second question is, can a company submit a proposal for 100% interest in one block? Teresa, now with respect to the question on the submission of proposals as a consortium or a joint bid, let me just say that our legislation allows such proposals in a consortium regime. Only one company that is part of the consortium will only has the right to submit the proposal. Let me just also refer that under the consortium regime, the bidders will always be evaluated and classified individually and according to the terms of reference established by us. So it must all be done in accordance with requirements within our terms of reference. Administrator, can I answer another question? Okay. Now, with respect to the submitting a proposal whose participation interest will be 100%, I would say that yes, you can submit so, you can do so, but we are not going to give you 100% of the participation in just one block. So a company will not have the rights to for at least 100%, given the fact that the company has the preferential right by Sonongo, but so they can be given at least 20%. So none of the investors will have the right to 100% on one block, 100% rights on one block. Nelza, apparently there was one more question. The issue of Sonongo, the preferential rights, the preferential right. How can the Sonongo preferential rights be implemented? So, administrator, according to Law 10/04, the law on the oil activities, the preferential rights will be allocated, taking into consideration the percentage given to Sonongo. So it's the 20% that I've just mentioned. So Sonongo will have the preferential right, and if that is not exercised, this right will be transferred to Angolan companies. If the Angolan companies are unable to exercise it, the preferential right goes to the different members of the contractor. And even so, they're unable to exercise their right. This can then be given to third parties. Thank you. I believe that the other two questions have to do with the data, and I'm going to ask Nuno to answer these two questions on the data. So the first question, how can we access the data? And secondly, the cost of the data package. Thank you, Nelza, and to Administrator Natasha. Before I answer this question, let me just introduce you the data package that has been presented by NPG. And, and it was mentioned by my colleagues who preceded me. This bidding process is not for new zones. These are areas that have been exploited, that have been previously exploited. So the data package put at your disposal. It's not something to attract investors, but it's a data package that proves the existence of hydrocarbons in those areas that are in production. It's not, it's not, it's not, the, proves the existence of hydrocarbon in these. For this data package, NPG has put at the availability at the disposal the two 3D seismic and for the wells that were drilled in these blocks, as well as the whole evaluation reports produced in these books. So there are two different uh, data packages. One for the Congo Basin for the 5 blocks in the and the other 3 blocks for the Kwanzaa Basin. For the Congo Basin blocks, we we have a 300,000 US dollars data package. Now, for the Kwanzaa Basin, there is 200,000. There's no obligation to buy this data package. The investors can buy this data package outside these two regimes. So the data package was designed in a such way to compress all that information in a systematic manner that can help the investor in their decision making. And for that to happen, we have created a mechanism to make all the data available in a fast manner. So all you have to do is to access our webpage, then you have to fulfill the pre-requirement, then you have a data package at your disposal in a maximum of 3 days. So it's not compulsory, but we believe that this data package can help in the decision making. So this data package talks about all the discoveries, previous discoveries in the Congo Basin. Thank you. I believe that there are more questions for you. The first is, how can we get the data package? How can we have access to them? And secondly, is it possible to select the data to be acquired, or is it compulsory to get the whole data pack? Is it possible to select the data to be acquired, or is it compulsory to get the full data package? Thirdly, is it possible to schedule consultations face to face? Thank you, Nelza. I believe that I've answered these two questions already, but yes, it's possible to get this data outside this package. Yes, as I already mentioned, the cost, and it's possible to select what the companies want within these two blocks. And if the uh, companies already have some seismic data, they can only get the wells, so as to help them in evaluation. There's no compulsory. It's not compulsory to get this data package. Data package was designed to simplify the evaluation work or by the investors. The third question, and I didn't talk about this. It's whether it's possible to schedule the data consultation face to face. Yes, it's possible. You can do that in presentially face to face, considering all the safety measures given the pandemic we are experiencing. But yes, we can do face-to-face consultation. But ANPG has put at the disposal of the investors, which is the data showroom, data virtual room. Many companies have consulted this mechanism so as to visualize these data. Another mechanism, we are not forcing the investor to buy the data, and we're giving the possibility for the investor to evaluate or to consult our data before buying them. This is just to show you that the certainty of the potential of these areas. Thank you, Nelson. Thank you, Nelman. Would we have more questions? The 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 program details, will they be made available within your website? I believe that there was a mistake. I think it's January 20. It's January 22, the probable date for the launching of the bid. The proposals will have to be submitted. Is that a question? Yes, it is. Proposals will have to be submitted 75 days after the launching. January 2020, 22, the probable date for the bid. So proposals will have to be submitted 35 days before. We have two more questions. Are there any privileges for local oil companies? And finally, what are the measures taken with respect to environmental issues? I believe that Elder, you could talk about the timeline. Thank you. The timeline details are already available on our website. Beginning in January, as it was mentioned by my colleague Kialunga, we are going to send invitation letters to companies, and companies will have 35 days to submit their proposals. So it's not going to be the launching of the bid. So there will be invitation letters for the companies so they can submit their proposals 35 days later. So 35 days will give you something around mid-February. And there's another question, whether we are going to have commercial meetings in December. Yes, yes, we're thinking of having these commercial meetings in December this year. Thank you. There was also a question with respect to this. special condition for local companies. Nelza, special condition for local companies. For local companies, yes, indeed. Whether there are privileges for local oil companies. For this restricted public tender, there's no additional privilege apart from the existing ones in force. There's no privilege or an additional privilege for local oil companies. We're talking about national operators, so they will participate in equal footing, just like other investors or even international investors. So because they already benefit from the incentives, uh, fiscal incentives. These, since we are talking about offshore, Angolan offshore zones, some of them in deep waters with some specificity given from the technical aspects, they require some experience, they require some knowledge uh, in these activities. So we would need experienced companies, well-established companies. So especially for those who are going to be working as operators, they'll have to have these conditions. Both domestic and international companies can participate in it as long as they are capable of meeting the expectations. As for the environmental issues, which was mentioned during the presentation from Celso Alameda, what is the legal framework that takes care of these environmental issues? In Angola, there are some requirements, environmental requirements that needs to be taken into consideration. This was mentioned here. I don't know, Teresa, you want to add something with regards to this? Just like the administrator has already mentioned, and and under the environmental issues, we have a specific legal framework that respects the environment. And for this bidding, the requirements on environmental aspects we have to be taken care of. We're talking about the legal regime, the international conventions that Angola has ratified. And let me say that the national concessionaire, as a regulator and supervisor, will ensure compliance with the internationally accepted best practices and applicable to our sector. Another aspect that requires our attention has to do with the rules under the presidential decree 91/18 that talks about the rules and procedures of exit or abandonment, dismantling of facilities. So under the environmental issues, that's all I needed to say. Thank you. And I believe that we have come to the end of the round of questions. Since there are no more questions so ladies and gentlemen, we would like to thank you for participating in this session. In case you seek further information, please do not hesitate to contact us through email comunicação.co.tel. Please do not hesitate to visit our website www.anpgs.co.za. Hoping that this session was very fruitful and that will be the beginning of good business. We would like to wish you a good morning, a good day, and I now invite Dr. Natasha Massano for the closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank once again to all attendees. Thank you for your interest and expression to give us the opportunity to present very briefly all the conditions for this restrict bidding process for lower basin for Congo and Kwanza lower Congo basis. What is the objective of the government in Angolan? Together with the national concessionary for the knowledge of the national geological potential of the country, as well as for the because of these reserves. We are taking account the implementation of this strategy, and once again, we are made available to you that we have 8 blocks for our promises, most of promises basins, and we are hoping that conditions that are in place for in fact that this opportunity could be open so that you can express your interest and to participate in these biddings. It is important to emphasize that Angolan government has made some effort to make the petroleum industry more transparent, more dynamic, more accessible, and more concerned with all investors, and to ensure an environment, business environment that would allow to the recovery of the invested capital. So we believe in the capital that we have. Angola has just given some to be a very proliferous country, and also to have a stable industry and dynamic as well. So we'd like to reinforce and reiterate that this is an election country for investment. Thank you very much, and we are from now waiting for your contact so that we can proceed in this interest process. Thank you very much to all and my colleagues for the participation and for all those very important presentations. And thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Natasha. Said that this is our session has been closed. Thank you very much once again to all of you.